It's really wonderful being with you, Tina, Stacy, and Danita today, and really thank you for just being here and sharing your stories. You know, over these years I have heard so many, and I'm always struck by how we would probably not know each other were it not for epilepsy. Stacy, we met because of our kids, and you know, just tell me about Evan.
We entered the world of epilepsy kind of for several years, not realizing that we were even in it. My son Evan is a twin, and we noticed some developmental differences and a loss of skills that started around 12 months, and it was just progressively happening for several years. But he was diagnosed at 3.5 with a rare pediatric epilepsy syndrome called ESES. And we were very fortunate. We ended up getting a diagnosis, but even at that, it still took 2 years to figure out what was going on, and 9 failed medications, and constant hospitalizations, and deterioration of skills and abilities, and watching our child kind of slip away from us before we were really able to hone in on what it was. So luckily there was a protocol, or a series of protocols, that for some kids with ESES does work. And Evan was a lucky one. He had his last seizure when he was 6 years old, and he has been seizure-free since. He has been medication-free, gosh, probably since he was about 10 years old or so, 10 or 11. So while we have a lot of gratitude of how things have worked out for Evan, my son, but it's there.
Yeah, yeah. It never leaves, does it?
No,
Just
it doesn't
never,
leave.
yeah.
It doesn't leave at all.
My daughter responded to a medication now 20 years ago and hasn't had a seizure since. But I'm imagining you also feel like, what, you know, if we had more research, we would have known what to do about Evan right away. We would have known what to do about my Lauren right away, and saved a lot of misery and a lot of suffering and a lot of really, really bad times. And, you know, I think that's why many of us are really, you know, committed to this and really feel the urgency of this mission. And when myself and a couple other moms founded Cure Epilepsy around my kitchen table, it wasn't about our kids, it was about the next generation of kids to come along. Danita, if you'll share Michael's story, he's such an amazing young man.
He was diagnosed with epilepsy at the age of 10, and it came out of nowhere. It was overnight for us. He went to summer camp. He came home on a Friday, went to sleep, and Saturday morning, I can hear it as clearly as I'm sitting here now. I heard my husband yell, "Danita, dial 911, Mike's having a seizure." I was asleep, and I jumped up out of bed. I run into the boys' bedroom, and they had loft beds that were metal, and the bed was shaking. And even right now, I can hear that metal clanging together. And my husband had climbed up into the bed with Michael, and I could hear him gurgling, and he wasn't responsive. He had had a complete grand mal seizure. That Saturday morning, we were in the hospital, and we saw a pediatric neurologist on Monday, and life changed. Everything was different. And we began medication and tried many, many different kinds of medication, and he is still experiencing seizure activity. The epilepsy is better. It is much better than it was. He has not had a grand mal seizure now in 2 years, so we are so very thankful for that. He's still having petit mal or absent seizures.
One of our scientific advisors early on said, you have epilepsy, you accept that you're going to have seizures. There's nothing that we can accept short of 0 seizures. That's the goal. And I know you're the young one in the group here today, and with the youngest
I have the youngest child, I will say. I'll put it that way. Yes, so my son's name is Benicio. He is 3 and was diagnosed when he was 2. with also a rare epilepsy syndrome called Duse syndrome. And like you, Danita, I remember the first one, the first grand mal or tonic-clonic. Same thing, my husband, I just remember I was in the shower, and I'll never forget that. I remember my name being yelled out with such panic. And he, Tina! And I ran out to the living room, and he wasn't currently seizing, but he was in that sort of post-ictal, that after seizure, kind of out of it state. And like you, it was, for all of us, I think it's just such an incredibly difficult diagnosis. This is just one of the most difficult things I've ever experienced, just to watch my child in distress like that, in agony, and then all of the follow-ups and the blood draws and the hospitalizations and the MRIs. My son started on a modified Atkins diet or ketogenic diet there, and we were very successful. We have been so far with that, but my son had drop seizures, tonic-clonic, myoclonic, absence, the whole thing. And so it was devastating to his development. As a sort of a newbie to this community, I don't think I realized how little epilepsy research is funded. To do this kind of research is so important, because I think the implications of epilepsy stretch so far and so wide.
A cure right away would have been life-changing for us. It's very, very challenging because you just don't know when it's going to end. He's at the age where he wants to drive, and he should be able to. He should be able to jump in the car and go to the movies, or, do many, many things that kids his age should be able to do. And so for us, it is research and moving the understanding forward would be incredibly, incredibly beneficial to families, to our families specifically, and to families who are dealing with this.
All our kids have different types of epilepsy. That makes it even more challenging.
I think that the thing that I have found most impactful in getting involved with Cure Epilepsy was the bridge that it created between myself, the patient population, and the researchers. What we all went through those few years has never left us, and if anything, it makes me more determined to fight for a cure, because every kid deserves what Evan currently has.
Together, I think we can really continue to have a huge impact on epilepsy research and putting an end to epilepsy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.